you start the video.
Slate.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've noticed with the headphones, it really allows you to be one with the other person in the conversation. And what I was saying is there are some people who might come in here and they're a little nervous. You know, they're not super familiar with being on camera or hearing themselves talk, or even just being on a podcast in general and answering questions.
Yeah.
But I've noticed the calmness of hearing each other's voices allows you to lock in, be nice and peaceful. And I think a lot of people feel more comfortable, 10 minutes into the podcast because they're like, oh, this is real. Like, it's just us two talking. It's not a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I love it. Sounds great. Sounds really good.
Perfect. Well, we'll get started. So, Kahrin, thank you so much for coming on. I'm really, really grateful you could make it today. I've been wanting to have you on for like a very, very long time. So this is super cool, and I'm glad we could do it in this studio, and it's a great atmosphere and everything. So I appreciate you for coming on. When I was preparing for this podcast, I was really thinking about like, okay, what do we want to talk about? Like, what do I want to dive into? What conversational paths do I want to go down here? And the first thing I thought about is something we have in common, and that's being a student athlete, right? Mm-hmm. And I was always curious about your transition from being a student athlete to what you are now, which is an amazing artist, a beautiful singer, and someone who has these creative juices flowing all the time and is making amazing art. So tell me about that transition. Was it challenging for you? What did you go through? Feelings, emotions, all that stuff?
Wow, thanks for that question and introduction. And thanks for having me on, too. This is super fun. Any opportunity to have a conscious conversation with somebody, I'm just all for it. So I'm really grateful to be here, too. And yeah, it's definitely been a really fascinating jump from being an athlete since I could walk to kind of not really being involved in sports at all or watching them really anymore. I know my senior year of college, when everybody's asking you what you're going to do when you graduate, when I was getting that question my fall semester of senior year, I just was so a deer in headlights, had no idea at all what I wanted to do. Because growing up, my intention from the beginning of pursuing basketball at a collegiate level was always for basketball to serve as the vehicle to play overseas so that I could travel and learn more languages. So,
no kidding. Okay.
Yeah, because since I was like in the second grade, third grade, I just remember checking out like French language learning textbooks and ABC books and Spanish books and just always being so enthralled with other cultures. And so when I found this gift in basketball, it was like, oh, this could actually take me around the world. I could potentially, if I work hard enough or find myself in a good opportunity, I could travel playing a game that I love. But by the end of my senior year, it was like, I don't love this game anymore the way that I did. There was just a lot of really challenging environments that I played in through high school and through college that we can get into or we cannot get into, that just kind of like stole the beauty of the game for me. It became something that I didn't have the heart in anymore. And so when it came down to this next huge career move for me post-grad, it was like, I honestly don't even want to look at a basketball ever again. I'm so done. This has caused so much pain in my life and joy and beauty. But like at that time, the pain and the suffering and the trauma was far outweighing the beauty for me. So it was like, okay, if I'm not going to play overseas, then what on earth am I going to do? And never, like literally never did I anticipate transitioning into being a full-time artist. That was never in the cards for me. It was like, well, I'm graduating. I have no idea what I'm going to do, so I'm just going to travel and figure out who I am on the road and in these different parts of the country. And it was then that I started writing songs as a way to express the inner workings of my heart. And also found video, and that kind of like was another way for me to express myself. And then when COVID hit, it was like, oh, I wrote an album on accident. Why don't I just see what that's like? Let's put an album out and see what happens. And now it's like, whoa, this is my full-time job.
It's so cool too. And I remember when that album came out, I went to, what was the name of that venue? The all white
Madison.
The Madison.
Yeah.
So beautiful. Such a great show. And everyone around was just like so excited to see you up there expressing yourself through this music. And really, you could see the passion that you had for the art. And it was really cool to see. And I totally relate to what you're saying about the trauma, the pain, the hardships of sport. And I think it's unfortunate too, because especially in team sports like basketball, football, it's not all up to you.
Right.
Whether that's playing or really anything, the coaches kind of play you like you're a piece of, you're on a chessboard, right? Yeah. And sometimes if, you don't have, I don't want to say emotional intelligence, because I think a lot of people, especially in sports, still do have emotional intelligence, but it's hard because you love this game so much, and you have this person or people or circumstances, whatever, that make you hate it. And I went through the same thing with football, growing up, loving a sport. It's all I wanted to do. And then you get to these places that you think, like you get to college football or college basketball. I've been working for this moment my entire life. And you get there and somebody who, for lack of a better term, is a miserable person, directs their emotions and feelings onto you and really messes up the game for you. And I think it's such a terrible thing to see. But at the same time, there are these moments, like for you, do you think you ever would have been an artist or musician if you didn't have those traumas and pains in that sport?
That's a really good question. I think yes. I think the artist in me has been there forever. It just took the opportunity to not be so involved with sports to really discover that energy in myself. And I would not be the person I am today without everything that I went through in my athletic career. So I wouldn't change a thing. Like, as awful as it was in moments and as painful as it was, and as much as it really messed with my self-worth and my psyche, all of those struggles that I went through forced me to develop a new relationship with forgiveness, to develop a new relationship with self-worth and inner peace, and just a general letting go. Like, thank goodness I was so done with the sport because of my trauma, because it catalyzed a whole life shift for me that I wouldn't trade for anything now. So I'm very, while I don't feel that anybody deserves to experience abuse in any regard, for me, I'm so grateful for the journey that I've had, because it's completely informed who I am now.
That's really cool. That's awesome. So I wanted to ask about the identity piece of it, because I think that's a challenge for a lot of student athletes, including myself.
Yeah.
Right. And we were just talking about it before we jumped on. The Aubrey Marcus podcast just had Aaron Rodgers on, and there was this moment where he was asking Aaron was talking about his darkness experience, rather. And he went through 2 days where he was either playing football or he was done with football.
Right.
And he mentioned to himself, he always thought like when he'd be done with it, it would be a seamless transition. It'd be easy. He's someone who's smart, well-educated, has a bunch of different interests. And it resonated so much with me because I felt the same way. When I was done with football, it was like, yeah, I have so many other interests. Like, I'm into so many things. I'm doing this podcast now and, all these other things that I'm interested in. So I thought it was going to be really easy, but I didn't recognize how much of my identity was wrapped up in being a football player. Now, for you, it seems like you were born to be an artist. You mentioned that you have that almost inner being inside of you of artistry and whatnot. Did you feel that, that identity loss when the game was over?
Oh my gosh, totally. Without a doubt. It felt like a huge loss, because one, I think just graduating or going through any large shift, you're going to experience a loss, regardless of what it is, where you're going, where you're coming from. For me, totally, it was like, who am I, first of all, without being told what to do every day? Like, you're from kindergarten, take these classes, color with these crayons, apply for those jobs, make sure you get that internship, got to be at practice on time, make sure you're at lift at this time. It was like you're spoon-fed every single decision you could possibly make for 18 years of your life, or 21 years of your life, really, by the time you're done with college. And so, first of all, being thrust into this new territory where I get to decide what I'm going to do with my time, holy shit. That's like actually a huge gift, and it's also a huge, like, it's just scary at first, because yeah, you have to actually decide, who am I now that I get to choose what I'm doing with my time when I don't have people telling me what to do anymore. So from a student perspective, not being in school anymore, that was a huge part of it. It was like, oh my gosh, I don't have classes Monday through Friday from these hours anymore. I don't have practice. I'm not competing anymore. You know, every single day of the week, every day was a competition, which is a whole other thing to go into, of like what that does to a mind over a certain amount of time. But totally, I experienced massive identity loss when I graduated. And I think that is why I decided to travel, because I was like, I don't have a freaking clue who I am anymore, what I want. And I'm certainly not going to find it sitting here in this desk at this desk job that I have no passion for. So I need to shake it up. I need to move around and start asking myself these big questions, because I'm not going to find them here.
I love that. And something I always say, my name on Instagram is More Movement, but I love to say, like, movement is life. Right. And that can apply to so many different things. To what you're saying, I could, you could have the decision to stay where you are and accept the fact that, like, basketball is done. This is my life. Like, now I got to work a desk job and I have to be miserable. But you decided, like, I'm going to choose movement. I'm going to choose going into the unknown of, traveling to another state or going on whatever journeys that you've been on. And that's where you started to find yourself. And I'm curious, where did you gain some of that inspiration to be an artist in that journey?
That's a good question. Well, I know that from when I was very little, it's something that I've been thinking about a lot, of like, yeah, when did this energy really start to take shape in my being? And my mom, growing up, was always encouraging me to sing. Always. Can you sing for grandma? Can you sing for papa? Can you sing for dad? It was always a fight, though. I was like, no, Mom, I am not singing for anybody. This is like not something I want to do for anybody. I'm too scared. She was always nudging me, though, and encouraging me to sing. And she is such a creative woman, and raised us to be super imaginative and super creative. And so I think just from my early childhood, I was always encouraged to play, to dream, to imagine, and to explore whatever the outlet was that I was curious about at the time. So I think that upbringing has a huge part in the foundation of me as an artist. And also, I think just like kind of getting into those circles in high school, I finally was allowed to join the drama club when I was in high school my senior year, and being able to express the full spectrum of myself, both as a basketball player and an athlete, and as a dancer and a singer and as an artist. That was the beginning of me being like, oh, I love this. I want more of this. And then when I got to college, it was like, no, you can't do any of those other things, because you need to be focused on basketball. Right. So I kind of lost that piece again. And it just bothered me. It was like, I know that there's more to me, and I know there's more that I want to be doing with my time, but I've come this far. So it's like, I can't quit now. So now I feel like I'm fully able to express who I am as an artist, and it feels really good.
That's awesome. That's really cool. You mentioned during your time you didn't get a chance to express yourself in a way that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
during your time playing, you didn't get your opportunity to express yourself in the way that you've always done and kind of grew up doing. Is there any other outlets? Because I think I remember you saying something about like every once in a while you'd pick up your guitar and play a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, was that, you know, a specific piece in your time as an athlete that allowed you to kind of hone in on your skills and allow you to decompress from that stress that you're accumulating in the sport?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I picked up the guitar when I was 15 for the first time because I was so anxious inside. I was 6 months post the shooting at my high school. So there was a lot of emotions going on in my being then, trying to just wrap my head around such an immense tragedy. At the same time, I discovered my bisexuality and I was raised Catholic. So that was a whole other just shitstorm of emotions that I was processing alone. And so because of just the anxiety of going to hell and the stress that I was experiencing at school with friends and on the court with my coach at the time, it was just all so overwhelming for me that learning how to play the guitar was like it was medicine. Like truly, from the beginning, playing my guitar and singing has been medicine for me. And that carried all the way through college and now. In college, when I was experiencing the same type of anxiety, still kind of being in the closet at the beginning at a Catholic university and in another toxic environment, after practice, it was like that's the first thing I did. When I would go home, it would be sitting down in my bed and totally just decompressing, playing my guitar and singing. And that's all it was until it became something more.
Yeah. I've always found too, the artists who are able to harness that pain create the best music, the best art, because there's something to it and it resonates with other people. Because, you know, you're not the only one and I'm not the only one who's experienced pain and suffering and confusion. So I think it's so important to find an outlet. You know, some people it's working out, some people it's going for a run, some people it's playing music, or like you were saying earlier, it's painting. And I think that's such an important piece that people skip out on. You know, I think a lot in society we put so much emphasis on the job, the salary, you know, the white picket fence. You need to have this, that, and then you're successful. But I've always found like whatever you're doing, if it's bringing you joy and it's allowing you to get lost in the process, almost like you're in a flow state, those are the things I think you should be going towards, and almost like in a state of, I was actually just reading this Bruce Lee book, right? So he talks about 3 different stages of life. And the first stage is you're young. You don't really know what's going on. You're just kind of going about it, right? Like as a kid, you're just like doing whatever.
Yeah.
And then the second stage is where you kind of like what you were talking about when you were 15, you start to recognize that like, okay, there's a different way of life. Like I know I should be living a specific way and doing things a different way. So you start to learn these tactics. And I think I'm still in this state right now. But you start to learn, you know, mental techniques to deal with stress, or meditation, or even like learning how to exercise properly for longevity. All these other things, tools, I would like to call them, to build you to this place. And then once you know, spend years and years honing in on your craft and perfecting it, you get into the state of artlessness. So instead of thinking so hard of like, I'm doing this, you know, I need to play this note at this specific time or sing this, you know, chorus at this specific time, you're just doing it and you're not even thinking about it. And I really have been, you know, thinking about that and meditating on that a lot, and realizing that like that takes so much time to hone in on, and finding that flow state, finding that state of artlessness, as I like to call it, and as Bruce Lee called it. That is what I think we should be going for. But if we're constantly in this, I guess, circle or bubble, or we're going towards things that don't bring us joy and fulfillment, we're never going to reach that state. We're never going to reach our highest potential. And it's so cool, like seeing people like you who have realized it and have realized their passion. So I'm curious, like, do you have any advice for someone, you know, say there's a 18-year-old kid listening right now who's a freshman in college, and they're scared and they don't know what to do. What advice would you give them to get closer towards their passion?
That's such a good question. Well, I would say right now, my best piece of advice is to read the book Love Money, Money Loves You by Sarah McCrum. I read this book at the beginning of this year in January. It was a gift from my mom for Christmas. And holy cow, this book absolutely changed my perspective on money, on enjoyment, on life in general, and therefore changed my routines and my habits and has completely changed my life. So what I wish I would have known when I was 18 is that my enjoyment matters more than anything, any salary, anything, like what you're saying. Fulfillment, enjoyment, and being completely absorbed in the process of whatever it is that I'm doing that brings me joy. That is the greatest guiding light, I believe, now, because I think so much of my life I have focused on how to position myself in some layer or level of success, how to earn some level of income, to feel worthiness in some capacity. And gosh, it's just such an old model of thinking. Like, we see it all the time. We see people who strive for what they have been told is success, and then they get it and they're completely hollow by the end. And I am so grateful to have experienced my own perspective of that when we won the championship my senior year of college. I wanted to win a championship in college since I was 12, and then it happened, and that was the heaviest ring I will ever have in my life, because I woke up the next day and was like, what? All of that for that? And it's not to discredit the experience. It's not to put down all of the hard work that my teammates and I put in. Like, it is something that I'm proud of, but wow, if I had been more mindful in the process, and if I had checked in with my body and asked myself, are you enjoying yourself? The answer would have been no in the first week of preseason. And who knows how many languages I would speak now if I had been studying abroad every other semester like I wanted to.
Right.
So for people, younger people, older people, anybody, like, what do you enjoy? Will you prioritize that thing? Starting with 30 minutes a day, and then build upon that and just see what happens. And don't worry about, is it leading me to something else? Don't worry about it. Just get lost in the enjoyment. Trust that that frequency that your body is resonating in when you're in a state of enjoyment is inherently magnetizing the precise opportunities to you that will catapult you in a direction that's going to bring you 10 times more of that feeling.
That was beautifully said. I love that. That's definitely going to be a clip. That last little bit right there, that was awesome. And something you touched on a little bit earlier, and it brought something into my mind. Do you know who Ram Dass is?
Oh my gosh, of course.
Of course. And I know a big thing he preaches is working on your environment.
Oh yeah, inner world,
right?
Yeah.
And I think, especially athletes, or especially anyone who goes to college, a lot of reasons behind why they're doing what they're doing is to make their parents proud.
Oh my gosh.
Is to impress their friends, or just to fit in general, because it's like, you're so lost in this world, and that's okay. That's totally fine. We all are. And so we're trying to follow this path, and we think this is the right road to go down. It's safe. It's what we should be doing. But I challenge you, whoever is listening, if you have any feeling of like there's a blockage, or there's something where it's like, I need to be doing something else, like this isn't it, follow that.
Totally.
Follow that. Don't bury it, because like you said, you reach that mountain peak of what you thought was the pinnacle of success, the pinnacle of happiness and joy in your sport, something you've been working towards since you said 12 years old. Yeah. It's in your head all the time, and you get there, and now it's like, what next? And it's the same thing with graduating. It's like, okay, I did it. What next? And it's scary, and it's a really hard responsibility to take on. because you could easily say like, that's it. Like, this is my life now,
Sure.
whatever. But it takes courage and it takes discipline and it takes a lot of hard work to answer those questions that you're talking about, those bigger questions in life. Like, what do I want to do? What is my purpose here?
Yeah.
How do I live with intention and fulfillment? It's so hard to answer those questions, but would you rather have that hard of trying to answer those questions and going down a hard path? Or would you rather have the heart of your entire life being less than what you could do, less than your potential?
Yeah.
And it's scary. It's a scary thought, I know. But look at you now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, look at you now, and you're doing something that you absolutely love because you were able to say, I don't care. Like, I don't care. I'm doing this for me. I'm going to write songs that I love, and I'm going to perform and do all these things as an artist. That's what's going to make me happy. And like, you have so much support from not only myself, but like so many other people who went to John Carroll and so many other people outside of John Carroll. And it's really awesome to see. So, yeah.
Oh, thanks for that. Yeah, I really appreciate that. Yeah, your advice is such great advice, and your call to people to really reflect and go inward and look at the mess inside and tidy it up and ask those big questions. Like, yeah, it may feel lonely. You may not feel like you fit in. I know for me, when I started really finding my own spiritual practice, when I walked away from the religion I was brought up in, and I started meditating and I started finding that inner Zen garden in my being, oh my God, I was made fun of like crazy. I was meditating with a cup of tea before games while my teammates were bumping Fetty Wap in the locker room. And they never understood it. They would make fun of me all the time, and it was frustrating in my mind at times. And I felt, I wanted to fit in, but I wanted to belong to myself first, knowing that if I just continued to follow the inner guide within me, eventually, when I really developed that inner connection, I will feel like I belong everywhere because I belong to myself. And I feel like so much of our culture, we're all programmed to try to fit the mold, to be accepted, to be liked. And it's just like all an illusion. Like, it's all an illusion. You will get back what you're putting out. If you're putting out truth and you're radiating an inner peace and you're radiating an inner confidence, you're just going to get that reflected back to you. If you're making decisions because you're trying to get the approval of your friends or your parents, you're going to constantly be disappointed, and you're going to constantly feel like you don't belong or something's off. And it's because you're putting your focus in the wrong direction. And we all do it. So it's like, if that's where you are, that's okay. There's always an opportunity to shift and start looking within instead of without.
Yeah. It's funny you bring that up. It's a paradox of, if you start to focus on other people and how they perceive you, people can sense that. You know what I mean? Like, you can sense when someone's trying to act a specific way for other people to like them. But if you're authentic, you're your true self, you get so much respect from your peers. People want to be around you. You're this light, this beacon of authenticity, of positivity, of being okay with expressing yourself. And I think that's inspirational, to say the least. So I was curious, you mentioned being 15, figuring out your sexuality, and coming from a Catholic background in Chardon, Ohio. Of course, right? That's tough. It's so tough.
Yeah.
You obviously have extremely supportive parents, and I know they support you in all your endouvers, which I look at that from an outside perspective, and I'm like, that's how I want to be as a parent. Like,
that's
that is
so cool.
It's so cool to me, and I love that, and I can tell how proud they are of you.
Yeah.
During that time, how did you feel? Like, how did you go through that, I guess, wrestling with your emotions and with your community and who you thought you were supposed to be, with the new realization that this is my sexuality and this is who I am?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. It was really hard during that time. I mean, I was and am such a spiritual being. Back then when I had that religion in my upbringing, my spirituality and my faith was obviously within those guidelines, but like my connection to spirit since I was very, very little has been very strong. And so discovering that this innate piece of me that I couldn't pray away was going to, what I was being told was going to separate me from spirit, was like the worst news you could possibly hear on Sunday, like every Sunday. Because it's like, no matter how much I ask God to change me, it's not happening. And so hiding in that place of complete fear that I am so unworthy of being loved by this essence that I have such a deep connection to, that I can't figure out how to change about this energy in me. Oh my gosh, it was devastating. It was like the most paralyzing fear ever. It drove me to very, very high levels of depression. I was incredibly suicidal in high school. I had a very big struggle with coping mechanisms that were super unhealthy. And yeah, it was a very, very dark time. And my mom, my senior year, finally kind of, we say that she dragged me out of the closet, which was, you know, we can laugh about it now, and we do laugh about it now, that it was all in love. She knew I was suffering. She could clearly see the depression, the isolation that I was putting myself in, and she just wanted to help. But nevertheless, I was not ready to confront that even in myself, because I was just scared.
Yeah.
But once it was finally out, my mom and I like really struggled for a minute, because both my parents were very, like, we were raised very religious, and they both were very much so connected to their beliefs. And so at the beginning it sucked, like straight up, it sucked. There was a lot of very awkward conversations. They were asking me a million questions that I had no answers for. I was like, you guys, I don't even understand this. I can't possibly articulate it to you. I didn't choose this. And so we struggled for a little bit, and our relationship definitely suffered, but it was in that distance between my mom and I that she really started doing research and learned what it meant to actually be an ally for somebody on the LGBTQ spectrum. And my freshman year, it was like a complete 180. She went from feeling very scared herself, feeling responsible for my salvation, to being completely confused by the beliefs that she held for so long, and totally deconstructed her belief system. So did my dad, so did I. And it was almost like at that point, the three of us all just locked arms and started walking in a new direction towards what we now understand spirit being, which is like love, unconditional, unwavering love, no rules, no constrictions, no restraints, like just love. And that like transformation that we all went through together is what bloomed such an incredible friendship between the three of us now. So they've always been supportive of everything in my life. That particular expression of me was just something they had to work harder to support me on at the beginning. But now it's clearly like, oh, duh, this is wonderful and so natural. And like, we completely get it and understand. And yeah, it's not even a topic of conversation anymore, really.
Yeah, that's really great to hear that they were able to overcome that and deconstruct their ideas.
Yeah.
Hence the reason I said I look at your parents and see an ideal way to parent, because you're so stuck in these ways, and you think, and I'm sure it's all, good intentions.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Everything that you grew up on and all your ideals was to be a better person, was to be a part of a community and to make this world a better place before you leave. But if that's your goal and you're looking at your ideals and you're not accomplishing that goal, especially with your daughter, someone you love more than anything in the entire world, that is that is a reason to change your ideas over anything.
Yeah.
And I'm not even saying change your ideas, but question them.
Yeah.
To really have a detailed perspective on them and say, is this real? Like, should I really believe this? Is this really serving me and the people that are in my community and in my tribe?
Yeah.
And that's really, really cool. And like I said, it's something that I want to continue doing. And when I do get to that step of being a parent, I want to be able to have that ability to say, okay,
Mhm.
this is what I believed in my entire
Mhm.
life, but my child is going through something different, and I'm seeing
Mhm.
this belief is now deconstructed by the way they're acting, the way they're thinking. So let
Mhm.
me take my time and start to have an empathetic view. I think that's another thing I'm
Mhm.
noticing from your parents. They're so empathetic, and
Oh yeah.
they show so much love and supportiveness towards you in whatever you're doing.
Mhm.
It's so important, and not even just as a parent, but as a friend, as, you know, a husband, a wife, whatever.
Mhm.
I think that's such an important characteristic of being one with another human being and
Yeah.
being able to connect. And that's such an awesome story.
Oh yeah. Thanks for asking. It's so true. It's like, how many of us are given a belief or a set of beliefs and we don't even ask, where did it come from?
Mm.
Is it mine? Or was this actually given to me? And if it was given to me, do I still believe this? Why do I believe this?
Exactly.
And so I think for them starting to ask those questions, when I started to ask those questions in me, like, it changed everything. And now it's like a weekly cleaning, you know? We always are constantly checking our belief systems and asking ourselves, is this in alignment with where we are, where we want to go? And we're constantly finding new things, individually and collectively, of like, we can let that go. That's no longer serving us. We don't need to hold on to that belief anymore. Beliefs about everything, from spiritual matters to beliefs about money, beliefs about success, beliefs about expectations and friendships, like beliefs about everything. There's so many things to question. And I think prioritizing curiosity is always an incredible recipe for growth.
Yes, absolutely. I think another piece to that I want to add on to what you said is taking your ego out of the equation. Because when you have these beliefs and your ego and identity too is wrapped up in these beliefs, it makes it so much harder
Oh, yeah.
to check them and to actually dive into the reason why you believe them.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's so tied into who you are, if that's wrong, then who am I?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a scary thought for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take yourself out of those ideas, that's when you start to see, like, oh, I'm not my ideas. I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my feelings.
Yeah.
I'm this consciousness, whatever you want to call it, God, whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it. That's who I am. I'm not these ideas. That's
Yeah.
when I think we can start to grow. We can start to get a little bit better in our ideas. We can add on to them. We can take out things that don't serve us anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a hard process. Going back to what I was saying earlier, it's a extremely hard process to do.
Mm-hmm.
But once you do it, I don't think there's any turning back. It's like
Oh my gosh.
the
Yeah.
ultimate growth factor.
Totally. Yeah, I feel like it kind of leads, touches back to the notion of fitting in and seeking approval and finding your path. It's like, for me, when I realized the end of this sentence was I am, period, and there was nothing that came after that, I am not a basketball player. I play basketball.
Right.
I am not an artist. I make art. I am not what anybody says about me, whether it's you're the greatest or you're a jerk. None of it's true, because the only thing that is true is my spirit. And how can you possibly find a language to adequately express a spirit, especially in English, the most infantile language on the planet? So when I really started sinking my teeth into that concept that nothing anybody says about me is true one way or the other, and that nothing I'm involved in, nothing that I create is me, that they're all just things that come through my vessel. Oh my gosh, it's the most liberating feeling ever, because it's like, no, I simply am, period.
I don't want to get too meta or anything, but it kind of goes back to that question of, like, what is truth? Like, another person's, my truth is different than your truth.
Sure.
We've gone through different experiences. We look at the world in a completely different way based on how we grew up, on, like I said, the experiences we had, the beliefs that we have in our body. What is truth? Like, if you're relying so much on your happiness from, let's say for me, example, people who are watching my podcast, I could sit there and say, oh, their reviews, like that's how this podcast is. This is it.
Yeah.
Or I can say, wait a second. I'm the motherfucker doing the podcast. Like, isn't my opinion so much more important than anyone else's?
Yeah.
And I think that's an important piece too, as a creative or anyone who, and I think every single person is a creative, whether that's in art or anything else. You have the ability to be creative, and I think that's what sets human beings apart from so many other beings. And it's almost a shame to pass up that opportunity at this experience of not being creative. Yeah, I lost my train of thought.
Yeah,
there,
no,
yeah.
it's a great, that question of what is true. I obviously can't answer that.
Of course.
I don't think anybody can.
No.
What I feel is the most closely connected to truth that I've experienced in my life is that there is a fabric of energy that surrounds us at all times that is pure love. That's just waiting for us to connect to it and to listen for its wisdom, knowing that when we do, all of our dreams, all of our desires, all of our aspirations and gifts will be given and presented to us at the precise time that we need them. That is the only thing that I have found that feels like truth. And when I remember that and I spend time actively seeking that connection to this fabric, that's when I'm home.
I love that. It reminds me of something I try to incorporate in my life is accepting the flow of life. And that acceptance piece is extremely important because like you mentioned, once you kind of let that spirit and let that love and energy in and just kind of let it take hold of you, that's when you start to be creative. That's when you start to, I feel like, be closer to your inner being and get closer to your purpose. But if you're constantly fighting it, you know, for example, if you're writing a book and you're like, I need to write this book, it needs to be this, it needs to be that.
Sure.
Instead of just saying, I'm going to sit down today and whatever comes out on this keyboard, that's going to be it. And it's so weird, and I don't know what to, you know, how to put it into words, this inspiration that we get of just something pops in our head out of nowhere. And I'm sure that happens for you, like writing a song or making any type of art, anything.
Yeah, dude, that's, if there's something that, I mean, I've experienced it as an athlete in moments, but it never in the moment felt spiritual. Now looking back, I can certainly say it was a spiritual experience when you're in a flow state and you're just vibing. In music, it's so obvious that for me at least, the entire process is inherently 100% spiritual. None of the ideas that come to me are mine. I know that. I'm lucky enough to have been open enough to be the vessel for them to be expressed through me. And so I think, like what you said, and not putting these expectations on ourselves and just focusing more on being open and calling upon the fabric, the guides, the muse, the wind, whatever you want to call it, to breathe that energy through us. That's when, like, the best art is created, I feel like, because the ego is not in the way. We become these hollow reeds of bamboo that this magical wind blows through, and then this beautiful sound happens. Like, for me, some of the best pieces of art that have come through me came from, I have no idea where they came from, knowing that they came from the fabric, but they're not mine, you know? So I feel like that's something that I'm constantly focusing on is empty me out, open me up, empty me out, open me up. Allow me to be a vessel for change, for healing, for connection. That's my goal in everything that I do. Because I feel like when I am in that state of openness and receptivity, the things I create feel so much more organic. They feel so much more aligned. And it also brings me closer to others. Because when I am in that introspective flow state of love and connection, I recognize that everything around me and everyone around me we're all a part of each other and we're all one. And so all of the grievances and all of the things that make us feel like we're separate from each other and from this planet, it all collapses. And you realize that, like, we're all experiencing the same thing because we're all part of each other. And that is such an amazing feeling, because then you realize you can't possibly ever be alone.
Yeah. And I've always found that music is one of those experiences where you do have that feeling of like, we're all one, we're all part of this crowd, or we're all part of this band, we're creating something. And like you said, you're not even in it. It's like you're just the vessel to play the guitar or to sing the song.
Yeah.
That is a really cool statement there. And I'm curious from, for you getting in that flow state and getting in that, everything you just talked about, what is your process to get in that? I know you talked about meditation. Is there anything else you do that allows you to get into that flow state?
Yeah, that's a really good question too. I think it's different every time, but the intention is always the same.
Okay.
Sometimes, most of the time I light incense. I like to stimulate my senses to open me up as much as I can. So I'll light some incense. But really, I feel like maybe it is more calculated than I realized. I like to call on the 4 elements. So I will always have fire burning. I'll always have a cup of water out. I'll always have a feather for air. And I will always have a stone or clay or something as earth to balance the 4 directions and call on the 4 elements of this planet to bring me what I need from each quadrant. Then I usually say a prayer. I'll either light my pipe, my sacred pipe that has cannabis in it. Cannabis is an incredible plant medicine guide for creativity for me. So I'm always open to that. But I always will say a prayer and intention just to ask my guides, all of my animal guides, my spirit guides, my soul group, ancestors, to be with me. And I ask them what needs to be said right now. Who has something to say? And it always comes. And it's always surprising, like, oh, okay, I guess that needs to be spoken about or sung about from an ancestor 10 generations back. And it's always, most of the time I would say, like increasingly so, the deeper and deeper I go into my spiritual practice, it's usually immediately obvious who is expressing themselves through me. So, but definitely it's a very spiritual experience. The elements are very important. Calling on my guides is always a part of the process. And it usually always starts with an instrument. So I'll pick up a ukulele or a guitar or banjo or a flute or a drum or a rattle, and I'll just start making sound. And then from that sound coming through the instrument, it like opens the doorway for the words to come. Seldom does it happen in the other direction where the words come first and the music comes second. It's always, for the most part, sound first, words second. Or like simultaneously, you know?
Like you have an idea in your head before you even lay down any instruments, or?
Well, it's like I'll pick up the guitar, I'll start messing around, picking something, and then a melody will come and I'll just start humming something. And then next thing I know, there's some fragments of words coming. And then there's always an aha moment where, oh, this whole line just like falls out in one swoop. And then I realize who's talking and what they need to say. And then from there, it's just like, okay, what else needs to be said? And yeah, so it kind of like the music, like the instrument is such a huge part of it for me. I love to write.
Yeah.
And some songs have come from a poem that I've written and then I match it to music later on, but they usually go hand in hand, music and words at the same time.
That's awesome. That's a really cool process. And I've heard that a lot about even, not even just your type of music, but even like a rapper, right? Sure. Like you hear a beat and you're like, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is this, you know? That's really interesting. Yeah. And I think the process beforehand, right? The cannabis, the almost like a prayer that you're saying beforehand. And I know you're not, into Catholicism or anything like that. Did you get that process from a religion? Is this something that you developed yourself?
Yeah, definitely something that my spiritual practice is such a blend of things that I discovered after I left the church that I've kind of pulled together into a practice that really feels like mine. Okay. So during my sophomore year of college, when I was really starting to challenge my religion and was like feeling more and more ready to walk away. I was starting to feel like past the anger and just like, oh, I just like don't need this anymore. Like I'm not even angry about it. I'm just ready to find something else. And I went to Guatemala going into my junior year, and that experience shattered everything for me in the best way. Like as soon as my feet touched the ground in that country, I cannot explain it. It was this tether that went straight into the center of the earth, from the center of my being and up into the sky. That was like this immediate feeling of home. Like I belonged there, like I'm from there. It was the strangest feeling that I still can't describe very well other than that.
Have you felt that before anywhere else?
No. And it's something that I'm still unpacking every day. But that was the beginning. That's when I feel like I awakened for the first time. Like I suddenly became aware of myself. I felt like I was completely asleep. And then I went to this country and I started interacting with the native people there and learning their native tongue and spending time with them in this incredible way. And it stirred up so much inside of me that I came home and I just started doing so much research, particularly on the Maya people and their spiritual practices. And one thing led me to another, and that's when I started meditating and I started listening to Native American flute music and burning incense, and like my spirituality went totally into a Native American path. And that kind of just led me around to different tribes and just researching their different spiritual practices. And when I started learning about the Lakota Sioux and their spiritual practice and shamanism and the medicine wheel and their relationship to the earth and the elements, that's when I was like, oh my gosh, this feels so true. And I found so much peace in those spiritual practices, and have kind of just, like I said, pulled bits and pieces together into what feels like just my own way. And I love it. I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's the backbone of my life. My spirituality is the backbone of my life, for sure.
Yeah, it's like a moral scaffolding for you.
Yeah.
That's
It's the
cool.
way. Like it's literally,
Yeah.
the Lakota Sioux, they have this concept called the Red Road that is based on, to be on the Red Road is to live a life that is embodied by these 7 fundamental principles, which if I can remember them all, it is respect, generosity, wisdom, compassion, well, I can't remember them all.
That's still a pretty good list right
There's
there, though.
like they're all there in my mind, and it's something that like when I read this, I was like, oh, what more could you possibly need? If you are living these 7 principles out in your life, you are living a life of truth, in my opinion. So very grateful to that particular group of people for their spiritual ways and their wisdom, because it's totally guiding my life.
That's really cool. And yeah, you seem like the type of person where that would resonate with you the most. And I think it has a similarity between a regular religion for everyone else who does practice religion, and it's that faith component. It's that belief in what I am doing is serving the greater good and serving God or serving myself, whatever, however you want to frame that. And it sounds like you found that for yourself. And, anyone listening to, because I know you are not, we talked about like, we're not the first people to experience pain. We're also not the first people to doubt these religions.
Yeah.
And, you see the priests, you see what they're doing. You've seen all the terrible things surrounding the Catholic Church and even church in general. It's been happening for generations.
Since the inception of that particular religion.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot to say about it, but
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I totally understand what you're saying completely. And I think it's important for people to realize that there's not just one path for life or one path for spirituality in general. And I think it's an important component, even as, someone, I'm not an atheist myself, but someone who is atheist, if they don't have that spirituality component or that faith component, I think there's almost like a piece of you missing. You know, I think, like we talked about, there's these certain things in life that we can't put a definition on, you know, death or consciousness or going to another dimension. You know, if you've taken psychedelics or even experienced a high level of cannabis, right?
Sure.
Like you've been in that state where you start to question everything in reality. Like, what is this?
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's important. And I think having a community, having moral scaffolding, having something where you can serve other people and serve yourself, and, you know, the most importantly, but also finding something that aligns with your values and who you are as a person. And it does take a lot of courage to say, like, this isn't what I want to do anymore, even though this is what I grew up on. This is my community. You know, your prior community, this is what they all believed in. And it takes courage to really step up and kind of do your own thing and something that makes sense for you.
Yeah, it was a very lonely journey to find the spirituality that I found. And again, I wouldn't trade that. It's all the more special because I worked for it and prioritized finding it. I have done psychedelics at this point in my life. Around this time last year in April, I did my first guided psilocybin journey with a shaman. And I had never done psychedelics before. I never tripped with friends or anything like that. I knew when it was time for me to explore, it was going to be in a very ceremonial healing space. And there's so much to talk about that experience, but the thing that I would love to share that's relevant to what you were just talking about is that in my psilocybin journey, in every single lesson that I was taken through, I was facilitating healing among another person or a group of people. I was myself, and I was also the person that I was working stuff through. So I was every single person in the conversation as well as myself all at the same time. So while I'm asking this person in front of me, why are we angry, or why are we crying? I was also receiving my own words in their body and also answering them. So it was like the tangible reality of we are one was so true in this space. Like, the concept of oneness was already there for me, but I didn't really fully experience it bodily until this journey. And it was so profound for me because it was like, yes, not only are we all experiencing the same emotions and the same joys and struggles, like emotionally, we are actually all a reflection of each other. And so if I'm feeling upset with somebody for what they've said to me, it's because I'm speaking to myself this way. And this person who is causing frustration or pain is actually giving me a gift because they're being a mirror to me, what I need to look at in my own inner mess. So being able to experience that oneness in such a tangible, real way in this plant medicine space changed my life forever, because now I fully understand cognitively and spiritually and emotionally, like, oh, we are all one. We are all connected. We are all on this journey together. And if we can start looking at each other as a part of ourselves, all of the conflict just starts to dissolve. And the unity just starts to replace that. And compassion starts to flood every single conversation that you're having, because you're not looking at somebody else as they're the other, or they're separate from me.
Right.
It's like, yes, what you've said has stirred up anger in me. I'd like to bring that to you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to look at my own anger. Can we work through this together? Instead of you're making me angry. Of course they're not making you angry. They don't possibly have that power over you.
Right.
So looking at everything as a gift, oh my gosh, it's a complete game changer.
Wow. That had to be a pretty unbelievable experience. And I guess I'm somewhat of a degenerate myself. I haven't done any shaman, psychedelic experiences, but I've definitely experienced psychedelics in my own way.
Nice.
And I've found there's a couple things with any plant medicine. And when you talk about, you experience that oneness And something I've always noticed whenever I've gone on these journeys, I am really receptive to another person's emotions. I almost feel like I'm living in their shoes. And like you were just talking about, I think you said it a little bit more elegantly than I. And another thing too is the plant medicine themselves don't heal you, right? And I think we, especially in today's modern medicine world, we're constantly looking for that pill, that magic bullet to heal us of all our pain and our suffering. But that's not what plant medicine does. It doesn't specifically heal you, but it gives you the opportunity to heal yourself.
Totally.
It brings things in front of your face where you might have been burying this for a really long time, but you do these plant medicines, you don't get that opportunity anymore. You got to face that, and you have to work through that, or you're going to be in this state of anxiety and this state of stress if you're constantly trying to hide from it. So that's a benefit I've always seen from plant medicine. But I do want to talk a little bit more about your experience in the shaman in particular. So was it just you and the shaman? Were there multiple people in this? So it was just you and the shaman?
It was just the two of us.
Okay.
Yeah. It was something after I had gotten back from Guatemala in college, and I started doing all this research on their culture and different tribes in that region. That's when I first got introduced to plant medicine, ceremonial plant medicine, particularly ayahuasca, and immediately knew that this was something I was called to. And it was really just a matter of finding the right, like not even finding, but waiting for the right guide or opportunity to find me when I'm ready. And I didn't do any research on psilocybin at that point, but slowly over time I started learning more about other plant medicines. And when I learned about psilocybin, it just felt like a great first step in leading me down the path to ayahuasca at some point. So I had just been asking for years. It was probably like 5 years that I was just routinely every couple months putting my intention up, like, when I'm ready, please bring me the proper guide. And there were a couple guides that came in and out that were potential, and it was always just like, not quite. And then I got connected with this particular woman, and as soon as I heard her voice on the phone, I knew she was the one. And I booked my appointment with her right then. A couple months went by. She sent me a PDF about 2 weeks before to prepare with my diet and my intentions and all of that stuff. And when I got there the day of, I got there at like 11 a.m. to her studio space where she was facilitating healing journeys, and spent the first 45 minutes talking through my intentions and my questions and my concerns, which I didn't really have many concerns. I felt so ready and so open. But yeah, we talked through them for like 45 minutes, and then I said a prayer with the medicine and was just asking it to bring me what I needed. And holy shit, 6.5 hours I was laying on a cot with an eye mask on, completely everything happening in my mind. I never moved. I never got up. I was in a completely other world for 6.5 hours. And who knows how much longer I would have been in that state had she not finally been like, just checking in, want to see how you're doing. Because right when she asked me that question, I was about to go down another massive rabbit hole with facilitating healing with my coach who passed away when I was in high school. So there's so much more to be continued from that first journey. And I left with more questions and most of my questions were answered in my journey, which was remarkable. But I left with so many more questions. So yeah, there's the Kahrin that existed before that experience, and there's the Kahrin that exists after. This complete life-changing, life-altering, defining moment. And I could talk about it. I will talk about it for the rest of my life.
Yeah, and you should. You absolutely should.
Yeah.
I love that you said that, though, because that before and after, I've experienced the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I truly don't think I would be here right now, having this conversation with you, recording right now, if I didn't have that experience.
I love that.
Where I took a little too much. It was during COVID. It was probably maybe like 2-3 weeks into COVID.
Wow.
So like really soon after all that hit.
Cool.
But I remember the feeling around it was like, this is 2 weeks, man. We're like off for work for a couple weeks. This is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in the house and just like for 3 weeks, all I'm doing is like getting out of bed. Like literally, I'm still living in my college house, rolling out of bed, going to my desk. There's my work. I'm on my laptop. That's it. Like I walk a couple steps. And it, like I said, for the first week, it was like, this is kind of cool. You know how like you're off from school for a week and it's like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
And then the second week you start to like, you get bored and you're just like, is this really what I want to do? And you start asking all these questions, and I could feel it start to bubble up, but it was like, whatever, right? You know, this is just, I have to deal with it. Just like football or basketball, you kind of know these times suck, but you get through it. And you know, like, okay, I can accomplish things that suck, which is a good trait to have. I'm not saying it's bad. But anyways, you know, my friend comes over. He's like, hey, man, I got some of these. Let's just have a good time. You know, like, we're doing nothing. Let's just like hang out, watch some trippy stuff, whatever. Yeah. So I do it, and like the first hour is like, okay, this is kind of fun. And then the second hour, it was like, that might have been a little too much. Like, I don't know if I'm enjoying this very much anymore. And then I remember the third or fourth hour is when we kind of just like started winding down for bed. And I'm still definitely tripping pretty heavily, but we're just listening to music, like hanging out, like just laying in bed. Well, I'm laying in bed. He's on the couch, and he goes to bed, and I just start like sobbing, like weeping for like probably a good 30 minutes to an hour of just like crying and having this realization of like, I don't enjoy my life. I don't think this is what I want to do. Like like we were talking about earlier, you're done being a student athlete. And I remember, my career ended with an injury, so I didn't get that chance to have my final season. But I knew I did everything up until that point to get to that level, and it was fine. I was okay with it. But that process of like, what am I going to do next? Or like, what is my identity? I still haven't answered that question. So in that moment, I realized like, this is not my potential. I know I can be doing more, and I know I have more interest in what I want to do. So after I was done crying for about 30 minutes to an hour, I just stayed up in my notes and wrote like 2-3 pages of like things I'm interested in, things I want to try. You know, just my thoughts in general of like who I am, what's my worth, you know, what are some characteristics that I love about myself, and what are some things that I need to work on too. So I went through all that, and I remember waking up the next day feeling the clearest I've ever felt in my entire life. Like it was almost like this door opened up and saying, you can go down this road. Like you are able to do this. You have the capability. And that's why I will always recommend plant medicine, because it genuinely changed my life. And I don't think I would be as happy or fulfilled as I am right now if I didn't go through that experience.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that. That's
Absolutely.
so cool. That's so cool. Yeah. I could not agree more that the potential that plant medicine has for healing is absolutely unfathomable. It's exponential. It's limitless. What plant medicine can provide to those who are open and ready for it. It's just such a beautiful opportunity for healing. It's not for everybody.
No,
it's not. And so I have a hard time saying I recommend it, because I can't possibly make that judgment call for anybody, but I want more people, especially in this part of the country, which I feel like the Midwest is generally just a little bit more conservative in just thoughts and beliefs and lifestyles. There's a lot of homogenous lifestyle in this area, and I feel like I just want people to know that it's there if they're curious, and if they are seeking, not only just seeking healing, but wanting to evolve and expand to a new level. Like I know that plant medicine is, like I said, exponential for healing. It's also like just an enhancer for well people. You know, I was talking with a mentor of mine who, he's a mentor in business and in spirituality and all things, and he's very much so connected into the plant medicine sphere. And he said that somebody told him, like, it could be for the betterment of well people, like for the people who are already on their path in their truth and are using it to deepen their practice, not necessarily as a desperation for healing, oh my gosh, it's just the possibilities are endless. So I hope that plant medicine becomes increasingly destigmatized, because even cannabis, like all of the social narratives around cannabis, I grew up with them. I had them myself. I was super anti weed. I was so judgmental about people who used it, and now I'm like, it's my right hand man. Yeah. Like it's helped me so much relax, connect, untether my mind, and just open myself and create with so much ease. And it's not that it's like I need it for that. It's just there when I want it. And it's helped me de-stress so much as a person. I feel like my personality has changed so much since starting to incorporate that into my practice. And so I hope more people at a minimum open their mind to plant medicine and actually do the research and ask the questions and talk to people who have done it and really hear their human stories and question the beliefs that they hold around it, because it could really benefit a lot of people.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I'm glad you brought up the fact that it isn't for anybody. So let me recant my statement of I recommend it, because you're so right. You know, there's definitely instances, and I'm sure there's evidence of this too in science, you know, scientific studies. People who have psychosis, you know, taking cannabis or taking psychedelics could be one of those things that crack your brain. And that's definitely not optimal living, like you were talking about. And I think another, like you said, it's able to enhance people who are already well off. You know, in our instances, we're educated. We, you know, we have a degree. We're on the right path. We're not someone who causes chaos in life. So on paper, you're probably looking from the outside like, they have it all. They're good. There you go. Done. Let's move on to the next.
Even people who like yes, it is an enhancer. And for people who are suffering with addiction, people who are suffering with mental health, PTSD, like clinically, it's medicine. It's genuine medicine, as opposed to being on a pill or something for the rest of your life just to manage the symptoms you're experiencing. There is an enormous amount of evidence, clinical evidence, that these particular plant medicines that are available, it could be one sit with ayahuasca and a 30-year addiction could be broken overnight. It could be one MDMA session and a war veteran suffering with PTSD has his life back or has her life back again. The studies continue to prove that when you're using these plant medicines in a proper set and setting, the healing potential is limitless. When you are recklessly using it to just trip, sure, you might have a really amazing experience. You also might not. So it's just being very mindful of your approach and your intention going into it every single time, because if you're not careful and you're not intentional about it, whether you're with a guide or not, just know that the possibility of it being a bad trip is there. But if you set yourself up with good intentions, you set your space in a space that is clear and free and peaceful and loving, you may still experience incredibly hard things in your trip or in your journey, but you know that you will get through it. Especially with psilocybin, it will always deliver you through to the other side. Even if you have to go through a hard pocket or pockets, you will always make it out. And especially if you have a friend or a guide there who's there intentionally to soothe you in those harder moments, it's like, of course you'll make it out. It's when people make decisions unintentionally or sporadically that they find themselves in a very challenging state where they're journeying through something that they probably didn't need. And that's when you can see the snaps happen with psychosis and stuff like that. So
definitely. I love that you mentioned intention, because that is a really, really important piece. And I actually had a conversation with a friend some months ago now where we were talking about cannabis,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I started getting into cannabis. I definitely did it in high school, but it wasn't like one of those things where, like, I always had, cannabis on me or anything
Sure.
like that. I was just like, we're going out to a party. Like, someone has some weed, let's smoke a little
Sure.
weed, right?
Sure.
It's not really a big deal, and I didn't think about it too much. Never really cared about it. And once I got into college football, I started realizing, like, my fucking body hurts, dude.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Oh my
hard.
God.
And we,
It's true.
going back to that conversation about being a student athlete, I was going through some really hard stuff,
Mm.
and dealing with coaches who didn't respect me and, all these types of things. I don't want to get too
Sure.
down the weeds here, but cannabis was one of those things that allowed me to decompress. I'd
Mm-hmm.
come back from a long day of practice, pissed off, like
Sure.
not even wanting to like leave my room,
Mm-hmm.
but, pack a little bowl,
Mm-hmm.
go take a shower. Now I'm like in the best state of mind.
Yeah.
I'm like hanging out with my friends, having a great time,
Yeah.
like just enjoying life, eating
Yeah.
food.
Yeah.
And I started to realize the benefits of it. And like, oh, this
Mhm.
is pretty cool.
Mm.
So, I went down this path and started using it a little bit more. And, I think with anything, whether that's psychedelics or cannabis, whatever, it can be taken a little too far.
Oh, totally.
100%. And I think I was down that road. I was in this place where
Mm-hmm.
I was smoking a little bit too much, and I could feel myself kind of like detaching from the benefits from it,
Yeah.
almost like using it as a crutch and
Totally.
unintentional, like we were talking
Mhm.
about intention, unintentionally doing it, just
Yeah.
kind of doing it out of habit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had this conversation with, a very spiritual friend of mine, had him on the podcast. Shout out Max Podokar. Great breathwork guy and everything. And I had this conversation with him about my state and kind of where I was at with cannabis and
Mm-hmm.
how I've gone down a terrible relationship with it. And the number one thing he said to me is like, treat it almost like you're going to eat food. You're before you eat food, not everybody, but in my family, we'd say a prayer before anytime we would eat.
Mm-hmm.
We're recognizing that we're grateful for this food. We're
Mhm.
grateful for the people around us we get to share it with.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're grateful to be in this state and in this place and in the
Yeah.
present. And he said, say a prayer and have intention before you use,
Yeah.
before you're about to smoke or before you're about to do whatever, have the intention of like, what am I doing this for?
Yeah.
Am I doing this to escape my life and to escape my reality? Or am I using this to enhance it
Mm-hmm.
and allow me to decompress and use it as a benefit?
Mm-hmm.
And, that was a big realization for me on really just anything, whether that be psychedelics or cannabis or alcohol, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you do, have intention behind it. Because if we're doing things unintentionally, a lot of times they don't align with who we are. And then we get into these states of anxiety and, doubting ourselves and negativity. And it all stems from being unintentional with
Mhm.
our actions. And I always like to say to all my clients that I work with, with fitness training, and these are just people trying to lose some weight or get healthier,
Mhm.
you are simply a sum of your actions.
Mhm.
So if those actions don't correlate with your being and your moral fiber, why do you expect you're ever going to be the person you want to become?
Mhm.
And that was just a big eye opening for me is just that intention piece and everything I do. And I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a perfect human being and everything I do is out of intention. I don't have habits that I don't want to break.
Yeah.
But the more I'm aware of it, the more awareness I can have in these circumstances, that's growth. That's where we
Yeah.
start to see these changes in who we are and start to develop into our true potential and find our purpose and be a good human being to yourself and others.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I can totally relate.
Yeah.
And would also agree. I didn't smoke weed for the first time until I did it once in college the summer before my senior year. It was like my friends are all graduating. I just want to have this experience with them. I had a bet with my grandparents that if I got through high school without smoking weed, they'd give me $500 each at graduation. And I was like, check, take that. And then for college, they said if you went through college, they'd each give me $1,000. I was like, check. But then it was like, oh, this experience with these friends of mine is priceless. There's
Yep.
no amount of money that would like overrule this memory that I can have. So I called my grandma and was like, Grandma, I'm just letting you know, I'm breaking the bet. I'm smoking weed tonight. She's like, well, you got close enough. I'll give you half.
That's
I was like,
awesome.
you're so funny. So, but that was the one time in college, and then I didn't really start smoking weed until after my season was done. I was very straight-laced. I was so competitive. I wanted to win. I wanted to be in the best condition physically I could be for myself and for my team. And so I just never went down that path. But then once I was done, I was like, fuck, I am ready to de-stress. And I'm open now.
Yeah.
And I started hanging out with some musicians that I grew up with, and they were bringing me down to the studio to make music, and there's joints galore all the time. And I was like, yeah, let's just like try this.
Yeah.
And thank goodness that I tried it, because at the beginning, it really did help me loosen up. It helped me relax. It helped me de-stress. And it totally changed this type A personality of mine into a type Z. I felt like it, and not in a way where I was lazy, which is another stigma that, oh, you're not going to work hard. It's like, no.
No, yeah.
I was very much so focused on what I wanted to do, and I was doing so without my shoulders being so tense that my traps were touching my earlobes all the time.
Right.
But a couple years into being, I mean, I have been an entrepreneur and an artist since I graduated. I've been doing it full time. Haven't had a job working for somebody else since. And the stress that I started to experience financially, trying to pursue my dreams, became so overwhelming at times. And trying to reach higher and higher heights of achievement, trying to grow as an artist at these exponential rates that my body wasn't even ready for yet, my spirit wasn't ready for yet. I started getting so stressed out that I totally used cannabis to escape my anxiety and my stress, and it totally became this addiction and this crutch. And I think just saying that out loud and being able to accept the fact that I have my relationship to this spirit plant has changed from one of sacred respect to one of abuse. Just being able to say that out loud and acknowledge that in myself totally transformed the trajectory of my relationship with cannabis from that point forward. And this is like mid last year that I was really like realizing this in myself. And now, like I said, I say a prayer just like you were saying before every time I touch my pipe to the center between my eyes, and I say, open my eye, help me to see. I touch it to my lips and I say, open my mouth and let only beauty pass through. And then I touch it to the center of my heart and I say, open my heart. And I'll do that like as many times as I feel like until I'm ready to take a hit. And like, my goodness, what a transformation it has been in my life, transforming my relationship with the plant and really respecting it and revering it for the healing potential that it brings. Like, it's here to serve. It's a gift given. And so in receiving that gift, the reciprocity of gratitude and respect is so important, I feel. So yeah, I think intention is really the key to most everything.
Definitely. You know, for me, I'm big into exercising, and I love that. It's my art. You know what I mean? I like to express myself with mobility drills and doing weird stuff in the gym. And cannabis has been one of those things that has allowed me to go into the gym and be one with my body. You know, we always talk about it in the bodybuilding space of finding that mind-body connection.
Yeah.
And, you know, as vain as I think the sport is, I think there is some type of spirituality within it too, because it is a flow state. You know, that pump or that feeling of like, oh wow, I'm getting a good workout in or whatever. That is a flow state, 100%. I wanted to ask you, you know, obviously you do a lot of mental and spiritual work for yourself. Physically though, what do you do to stay healthy?
Oh, it's such a good question. My relationship to health and fitness has changed so much.
Oh, me too.
You know, I think after I graduated, I was so anti-lifting and so anti-aggressive workouts because my body, like you said, was hurting so much. My
Yeah.
knees, my ankles, my back, all the pounding and all the running. It was just like, hell no, I'm done with that. And so that transitioned me into yoga, which became and is still a huge part of my, not only my health and fitness practice, but also my spiritual practice. So that's something that I routinely am involved in because I just think for mobility, flexibility, breathing, it's just such an incredible form of exercise. But really in the last, I would say this year, I have really totally transformed again my relationship to health and fitness. And now I'm back at the gym lifting Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and I'll do some form of cardio another day of the week, whether it's doing a really hot yoga class or going for a run or riding my bike. I really feel that it's so healthy for my body to be lifting and to be stretching my muscles and just gaining more flexibility, especially in my spine. Like
Definitely.
the mobility of my spine really gives me life. Like it allows me to do everything. Having a healthy body, moving my body in a consistent way. It's completely transformed everything for me, developing this routine of lifting and doing cardio 4 to 5 days a week because one, my energy levels are 10 times higher. People are like, oh, I'm too tired. I can't go exercise. It's like, no. If you go exercise, especially if you do it right when you wake up in the morning, you're going to have 10 times more energy to get through your day. And that's like, if people just give themselves a chance to build the habit, it will be something you look forward to every morning. I look forward. It's the first thing I do when I wake up. I make my kachava and I go straight to the gym and I get a good workout in and I listen to a podcast while I'm working out. So I'm filling my mind and my body with good energy right from the jump. And that sets me up for the rest of the day. So for me, health and fitness is so important. My health and fitness is literally my number one priority because my vessel is how I create. It's how I serve the world. If I'm not healthy, I cannot serve. So my health is so important because it literally enables me to be what I want to be in the world. I also have reclaimed my relationship to basketball, which
that's awesome.
has been, it's been so special and so sacred. Like I said earlier, when I was done with my career after college, I didn't even want to look at a basketball anymore. I was so done. And over time, it just, everybody was like, you're going to miss it. You're going to miss it. I'm like, no, I will not miss this. You don't know what I walked through. I will not miss this. And they're right. Like, no, I don't miss the collegiate environment. No, I don't miss competition. I honestly don't even, there's a lot of theories on competition. I have my own. I don't think competition is healthy. I think collaboration is the new way. Competition feels like an old way. That's just my opinion. But for me now, when I go to the gym to play basketball, I will microdose mushrooms before I go, and I will get completely lost in play. It feels the exact same as me painting now.
That's awesome.
I go, there's no objective. I'm not training for anything. I'm just getting a good sweat in. I'm laughing. I'm doing all the drills that I did when I was 12. And I'm just having fun again. And the reason why I started pursuing basketball at a high level in the first place was because I loved it so much. Because it was therapy for me. It was a way for me to completely let everything else in my life dissolve. All that I'm thinking about right now is this free throw. All I'm thinking about right now is this behind the back move that I really want to nail. That's all I'm thinking about. And that feeling that I had when I was a kid that I lost in the process of trying to seek approval from coaches or whatever, that spirit of the game that I had then, I have again. And that is so special to me. And I'm so grateful for it because it's a healing practice. And it not being tied to any type of worth or performance or achievement. It's just for the sake of play. Oh my gosh, it's such a gift.
Yeah. I heard this one quote, and this is what it reminds me of, your story here. A part of becoming an adult is learning how to be an adult. But another piece of that is learning how to be a child again.
Yeah.
And It's so funny you bring up the basketball piece, because I just recently, in the new year, got a membership to the Y.
Yeah.
And so I've
That's
been
what I did.
Lakewood Y.
Yeah.
I do the same thing. That's so funny. I love playing basketball. It's always been something that I've enjoyed. And like you mentioned, your mind goes blank when
Totally.
you're in that process. You're just shooting around, having fun. It goes in, it goes in, it doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, you just kind of are doing your thing. I gotta
Mhm.
try the microdosing. That sounds fun.
Oh, dude, just putting some headphones in and vibing out with a very small dose. It's the most euphoric feeling. Like, truly, I feel like it rewired so many synapses in my brain.
That's
like all
awesome.
these neural pathways have been rewired because there's pure joy when I'm playing now.
That's really cool. I'm really happy to hear that you've reclaimed that happiness
Yeah.
for the sport, because like we were talking about earlier, it's really a shame to see someone external who doesn't know you, who doesn't know your story, and doesn't know your feelings and emotions, take that joy away from you for whatever reason they have. And it's such a hard thing to do. And I wrestled with that too. And football is like, after I was done, I had this perception of the game where it was just pain and struggle.
Yeah.
And it took so much away from me. You know, I have so many surgeries on my lower half, and I'm dealing with injuries all the time. And I had this perception that I hated the game. I didn't want to watch it anymore. It took me a whole year to even look at football again. But it took that inner work of recognizing like how much the sport has done for me and what it offers me. You know, basketball is a little different because you can go and play it, but it's that sport where I was able to be my warrior self.
Sure.
And I felt like we were talking about, like you were saying, channeling your ancestors when you play music.
Yeah.
I come from a long line of like military people, and I don't know my, 10 side ancestor or whoever, but I imagine they might have been like a Viking or someone in a war.
Sure.
That's just like who I am and what I have in me. So that's why I love the sport. And for me to like end my career hating it, it sucked. Like it was so hard to deal with. And I'm sure you went through the same exact process. But I think it's really important to look at the whole story.
Yeah.
And not just say, yeah, this is painful. And I'm not going to sit here and say it didn't take a lot from me. I left a lot of body parts out on that field.
Yeah.
But I also gained some of the best friendships I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
I've had these experiences that I will tell my grandkids. I've been to other states to play football. I've had, people asking me about football in the town, and you feel like a superstar in high school, these little experiences that really shaped me into who I am, and, gave me discipline and hard work and all these values that are to my core being. It's one of those things where I don't wish I could go back, like you were saying. Like I don't want to go back to those practices or go back to those days where we're running 4110s or anything crazy like that.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But you definitely miss that feeling of play, of sport, of flow state, of this is something that I've done my entire life and it's gone now. It's one of those things. I'm really glad that I had that conversation with myself to say, like, this is something that served me really, really well, because I didn't feel that when I first stopped playing.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I definitely feel like what I understand now, which we talked about earlier, is the reality that nobody can make anybody else feel a certain way. No, like my coaches didn't take anything from me. They didn't cause my pain. My disconnect to myself and my self-worth is what really caused my pain. But this is where it's very challenging, or where there's a particular responsibility on behalf of coaches, is you are working with children. Children do not know they don't have that language of self-worth. Even at the collegiate level, we're still kids. We need to be guided with love. We need to be appreciated. We need to be We need to be instructed, not demeaned, not degraded.
Totally agree.
And unfortunately, it's like, yes, while my coaches were not and are not responsible for the pain I experienced, they are responsible for creating a nurturing environment for children to play. And I think that is my biggest issue with the athletic world, is that unfortunately so many coaches were former players who were most likely abused and then think that's normal, and then they abuse their players when they have a position of power because that's how they get their power back.
Yes.
And it's really sad because like you said at the very beginning, most of the coaches that coach in such a way that is abusive, they are so sad on the inside, whether it's something that they experienced as an athlete, something from their childhood at home. Regardless, if you're a coach and you are in a position of leadership and you have a lot of young eyes looking to you for instruction and guidance, my goodness, I hope you take that responsibility seriously, and you ask yourself, is this how my 10-year-old self would want to be spoken to? It does not matter. No win-loss column matters more than the health and well-being of our children. So all of the abuse that is happening and still continuously happening in every sport all across the world, all levels, from youth sports all the way to the professional level, this is the thing that needs to change, because sport in and of itself is beautiful. It's a practice for life. You learn so many skills. You walk away with so many friendships, leadership skills, communication. You learn how to fail. You learn how to succeed. All of that stuff is so important. But if you spend decades of your life in therapy afterward trying to undo the psychological brainwashing from your collegiate or your high school or whatever your experience is, those lessons and the valuable lessons seem to just not matter as much if you're spending so much time trying to undo the programming that you had in a negative way. So that's a change that I want to be. I know I'm not done with sports. I know I'm focusing on art right now, and I love that. And I'm not in any rush to get back to sports, but I know that it's in me that I want to be the coach that I did not have. And I want to create sports, particularly basketball, because that's my field. But I want to create an environment where children, from whether they're youth or their collegiate level, feel nurtured in developing their craft from a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual perspective. Because that's what we need. Especially like knowing how much sports are a part of our culture across the world, and especially in America. Like, there's so many young kids watching. They're watching the television. They're watching coaches lose their shit. They're watching fans screaming at refs. It's ridiculous. For what? Like, what are we teaching our kids?
Right.
Like, yeah.
I totally agree. Like, everything you just said, I completely agree with. And we've both gone through those circumstances and dealing with coaches who are just assholes for no reason. And it's mind-boggling to me, because you're in this profession that's supposed to be fun. It's a game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is playful.
Mm-hmm.
How are you not, like you said, very, very, you said it in such a great way, of creating an environment that actually nurtures children.
Mm-hmm.
If your environment is just negativity and you're yelling at kids and treating them like dogs, how do you expect to win games?
Yeah, well, you can still win games, but how are you bettering the planet?
Yeah, that's another thing too.
It's not even like, it does not matter. Like, I understand that your salary and your job security is dependent on the success of your program, but can we please redefine success? Can we please look at sport as an opportunity to shape and mold children to being leaders with conscious behavior and mindful perspectives, and children who can take these skills that they learn in this bubble container of athletics and apply them in real life to be mentors to others, to be in community with people, and to work with others towards a common goal, like you do when you're on a team going for a championship. Like, if you walk out, if you have a graduating class as a coach with a group of 25 guys or 10 women who are mindful, loving, patient, resilient, like all of the things. To me, you have done your job as a coach, and your position should be more secure than any coach who has an undefeated record and a bad attitude.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's what I hope for. I hope that for every university, for every high school, every youth organization, professional level, I just hope that we can really look at what success is and start to question our beliefs about what it is and start to redefine it and start to create environments for children to express themselves in an athletic way that is safe for their spirit to grow and to evolve.
Definitely. And yeah, absolutely. The success piece of it, defining what that looks like, is such an important piece. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at those graduates and saying, are these people who I want to change the world?
Yeah.
Or are they beaten and broken and can't wait to get out of here? Because I saw a lot of seniors come through programs, especially at my first school, that were ready to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Where we'd come into a season, they're beaten down, you know, they've had a couple injuries through their years, and they hate the coach more than anything. They hate practice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this game that they used to love, and then they're done with football and they're completely lost.
And they hate themselves.
They have no self-worth because they've never gotten anything or never learned how to, like you said, you don't really know what that is as a kid.
Well, you're taught that your self-worth is derived from your performance.
Yes.
That at least that's what it was for me. Literally, if you do not perform to my standard as this coach, you are not worth anything to me.
Mm.
And that is something I'm still working on in therapy. Still. Yeah. Really redefining what my self-worth actually is and what it's connected to. That's the biggest devastation that's in sports, I feel like, so often. It's not everywhere. Like, there are some amazing coaches out there who are already embodying everything that we're talking about that we desire, that we didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's really just like, gosh, just allowing kids to realize that their worth is inherent, can never be tainted, can never be soiled, it's never dependent on how they show up in a game.
I love that. I saw this one clip of LeBron James talking to his son, and his son was having like not a good game shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And he sat him down. He's like, listen, you made amazing defining plays throughout the game. You played defense here. You did this here.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, listen, you're going to make shots and miss them. It doesn't matter what happens in that moment. You got to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And that was such an awesome thing to see, because I remember going through high school and then my first college, my second college, John Carroll was completely different. I loved my coach. He brought that love back to the game for me. And I'm indebted to him for the rest of my life. And I'll always have love for that guy. But I remember in high school and in my first college, just feeling like if I messed up here, I'm not going to be able to play. Or like if I make one mistake here, I'm about to get screamed at in film. So like the whole time you're thinking to yourself, like, don't make a mistake, don't make a mistake. And you're not even thinking of playing. So that's where I was going back to. You can't, if we define success as all those qualities that you mentioned, but even if we define it as winning, is that really going to help your team win the most? Because I've always felt like any program that I've been on, and yeah, in spite of the coaching, we've definitely won, but especially in college where I think there's more of an even playing field in terms of talent.
Sure.
The coaching was really where it shines through. That we were terrible. We lost all the time.
Oh, so did we.
Because our team, our players didn't play.
Their spirit was dead.
Yep.
My spirit was dead.
Yep.
Like, yeah, it's
such a grind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's actually end this podcast on a positive note.
Yeah.
So you got some cool stuff coming, and we're going to drop this podcast around the same time you drop your album. So I'm really excited about that.
Awesome.
But let's talk about it. So you're working on a new thing. Is it Poems from a Willow Creek or?
Yeah. Poems from Willow Creek.
Okay. That's awesome. So tell me about, where'd you get the inspiration from? How did this process go about making this album? How was all of that?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So in 2020, at my brother's wedding rehearsal dinner at my folks' house, we were all sitting around as a family in the living room, and they were asking about my first record that was going to be coming out in 2021, asking about what kind of music it is, whatever. And I was like, it's kind of folk, it's kind of indie, some of it might have some country undertones, but it's mostly folk. And my dad was like, oh, I have something for you, I'll be right back. So he comes running back into the living room and puts this dusty old leather cowboy hat on my head that has all these feathers in it and these metal pins and whatever. Such a cool hat. And then my papa goes, oh, that's Nino's hat. I was like, who's Nino? He's like, you don't know who Nino is? I was like, no, I don't know who Nino is. Then he was like, I have to go get something, I'll be right back. So then he leaves, comes back like 10 minutes later, just grabs my arm, drags me into my parents' room, sits me down, and starts reading this book to me. That was poetry. And I had no idea what was going on at all. And after he read the first poem, I was like, Papa, what is this? What are you reading? And he closed the book and flipped it back to the front cover and pointed to his name at the bottom. He's like, these are my poems. See? These are my poems. I was like, you write poetry? He's like, no, I did. In 1996, I wrote this book of poetry. I've never been able to write again. I was like, I had no idea. He's like, oh yeah, I also painted. I have like 10 canvases and I did some brown sculpture work for a little while. I'm like, what? Who are you? And mind you, my papa was an alcoholic for like 60 years or something like that. Like a box of wine a night kind of guy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we did not get along. We did not have a good relationship. He grew up right up the street from me, and as I started to step into myself and I started to find my own beliefs and my own path, we had a lot of friction in our relationship. And he got sober at 80 years old the year before this happened. Wow. Which, like, for anybody who wants to make a change, you can. It's never too late. You always deserve the opportunity to shift. And that's the thing. One of the biggest things that I've learned from my papa is that you can always grow, no matter where you are on your journey. And so because he wasn't drunk, we finally had this opportunity to connect soul to soul. And I started looking at him while he read me these poems for like 30 minutes, one after the next. He's crying, and I'm just like looking at him like, who is this man? Started realizing, oh my gosh, I am so much like him. My whole life I've been judging him. I've been looking at him as the other. He's so different than me. And now I'm like, wait, you write to soothe your suffering too. You write to express yourself too. You have Native American art all over your house. I love Native American culture. You paint, I paint. You like to sculpt. I'm working with clay now. Like, holy cow, you like to be on the land, and you've always said that the land is your church. I understand that now. So it was like this very bewildering, special moment with him where I just saw our similarities for the first time. And he left me with the book after a while. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm too emotional. I was like, all right. So he said, you can have this. This is my last copy of this book, which is the book that I brought here today. It's the last copy of what the ones that he made. And so I'm sitting there with this book, and I flip back to the beginning and I read the preface. And in the preface, he wrote, in the past, I have never made a serious attempt to write any poetry or any written works of any consequence. This attempt, I'm sure, will have no literary impact on the world, with an exclamation point. And as soon as I read that, I literally went, and I just started weeping, like uncontrollably sobbing. And it was like somebody threw a blanket over my body with information. It was just like staring at the floor, tears rolling down my face. It was like I was watching a movie. It was like one scene flashing in front of my vision after the other. It was like all this information was there that I needed to turn this poetry book into an album to show him, or at least try to show him, that his words absolutely do have an impact. They've already impacted me. So therefore, they've impacted the world. And beyond me, the times that he has shared this poetry book with other people in the family, it's impacted them too. I didn't know about it until this moment, but oh my gosh, it was just this like immediate calling to do this. And I had all the information I needed in what to do. And so when I walked back out after I had my moment, I walked back into the living room and I told him about it, and I asked him if he would be okay if I did this in his honor. And he goes, well, sure, you can change the words, you can do whatever you want. I won't even charge you a dime. You are such a businessman. And so that was the beginning of the journey. 2 days later, I went up to his house and I mic'd him up and I put him on camera and I filmed him reading the entire poetry book. And that was the beginning of the journey for me. So 2.5 years later, all 14 songs are written. There's like 30 something poems in the book, but I obviously didn't feel like taking on that large of a project. So yeah, last year, my 2 really good friends, Elijah Bisbee and Autumn Traub, I asked the 2 of them if they would collaborate with me in helping me write this immense project, and they said yes right away. And we started writing the tunes in chapters, and by August of last year, we had written the whole project, and now it's ready to be released digitally. So it's been a very long journey. I feel like I've been carrying this project like a baby for 2.5 years. I feel very pregnant and I'm ready to give birth to it. So it feels really good and very inspiring to have it in its fullest expression.
That's very cool. And I'm sure your papa feels this sense of like accomplishment too.
Oh, yeah.
That's really awesome. And to what you were saying earlier, when you write a song and you do the prayer and ask your ancestors to kind of speak through you. As soon as you were telling that story, I immediately thought of who spoke through your grandpa in those notes.
Wow.
So thinking about that is like how much generational, you know, I don't want to use the word trauma, but like feelings, emotions, experiences are in that book right now.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, I mean, in the dedication, he dedicates this book to his parents, William and Clarice, and you'll see on the brand that he created, it looks like a steer's head. It's like a W and a C. It looks like a steer turning its head to the side. He created this brand that has so many meanings. Of the W and the C obviously are for Willow Creek, which is the farm that he grew up on, that my dad grew up on, that I grew up on. But it's also William and Clarice, the first names of his parents. So their spirit, for sure, is infused into that entire book of poetry. So it definitely feels like an ancestral legacy project. And I just, again, feel so grateful to have been the vessel. I'm at this point in the process where it's starting to feel so surreal, and because it's near completion, I'm able to actually step back and look at it from a bird's eye view, and I'm just dumbfounded at how this even happened. And it came through me. Yeah. And I'm still just like, how did this happen? It feels like such an honor. I can't even believe it. Like, I can believe it, but it's just like, wow, what a gift. Thank you, Uni. Thank you to the guides for giving me this opportunity to honor him and to heal my relationship with him, because him and I are so close now, and our whole family has come together through this project. It's been healing for everyone. So just to be able to be a part of that and to be a conduit for that is just something I will cherish for the rest of my life.
That's really cool. And the songs themselves, is it verbatim from the poetry book, or is it a little bit of, I'm reading, gaining inspiration, let's write something that's, you know, applicable to me and myself?
Yeah, that's a great question. Some of the tunes are definitely, like, the words were just so damn good. Yeah. And the way they were written was so good. And some of the tunes are very similar to the way that the poetry was written. Sometimes I would maybe split this stanza in half and put this stanza, the half of this one with that one. Sometimes I would rearrange things. And other songs, like, I think as I got further along in the writing process, I started to realize that I have permission to make these mine. And so at the beginning, I feel like I was being very conscious of trying to leave things as close to the integrity of the poem as possible. And then as I got more confidence as a collaborator of my own project, I started to realize that, no, I'm allowed to interpret these and change the lyrics in such a way that it feels very resonant for me to sing them. And he also has a very interesting rhyming structure. Like his writing style is so different than mine. I'm a minimalist through and through. Everything in my life is very minimal, and that shines through in my lyrics. Very few words that hopefully say a lot.
Yeah.
And he's the opposite. He likes a lot of words. I've never read poetry that has the rhyming structure that he has. And he laughs about it too. He's like, I don't have iambic pentameter. I'm like, no, you do not. You really do not. And that's great. That's his style. So this whole project, musically and lyrically, feels like a true blend of him and I. It feels fully collaborative with his spirit and my spirit. And of course, the spirits of my two collaborators, Autumn and Elijah, their spirits are infused into the project as well, because they help me, form some of the melodies on the guitar, or help me readjust some of the lyrics. Their input was super valuable. So it's been a whole team of people coming together to put this thing together. And I'm just so grateful for it.
I'm super excited to listen to it. It's going to be awesome. And to hear how much work, and I mean, this is generations of work into this project, if you really think about it, which is so awesome. And I'm curious, with those two people, is there a reason you picked those two? Did they have a similar mindset to you or upbringing?
No, it was really, and then there's another person that I really am excited to shout out as well. But for Elijah and Autumn, I had met them in September of 2021 on a songwriting retreat that Elijah hosts. This songwriting retreat organization that he started is called Terra. And it's just the safest space to write songs in a community format. And so I went on his retreat for the first time in September of 2021, and I really became friends with Autumn during that time. And they both just moved me in that experience. Their songwriting, their vocals, their connection to music, it was moving for me. And I had luckily just developed a really beautiful friendship with both of them. And so when I was thinking about who I wanted to ask for support, they were just the first two that came to mind. And it was wonderful working with them. And from there, writing those songs with the two of them, where these songs really came to life, was with Tori, my producer. Tori is my best friend. Her artist name is Willingness. She just released her own project called Willingness, but I brought the project to her. She's the one who produced my first record too. And so when I brought this project to her and asked if she would be interested in producing again, immediately it was like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to do this project. And because of our friendship and our spiritual connection and the relationship that we have, she knows my spirit so well. She did such a phenomenal job drawing my spirit out of the music in the silence. Like, she heard, like, the instruments that she chose and the way that she created this production. I mean, we've just been sobbing and laughing through the whole process, because it has become so full of life. And that's a combination of her infusing her spirit, which is so resonant to mine, and making decisions that she knows are in alignment with my individual spirit. So the collaboration between her and I in the production phase is just like, wow. It's so beautiful. It's such an honor working with her, and I cannot wait for people to hear this expression of these songs, because they feel completely full of life.
Well, if it's anything like your first album, I think people are going to love it.
Oh my God. Yeah. I laugh about my first album because, like, while I'm grateful for it and it was where I was at the time, it was a complete accident. I was never planning on releasing an album. Like I said at the beginning of this, it was journal entries that turned into songs that I threw together during COVID just as an experiment. So there was very little intention in terms of the writing structure, the musical structure, the arrangements, the instruments that we used in the production. Like, if people like my first album, which I'm grateful that they do, and I'm honored for that feedback, if they like that, I cannot wait for them to hear this one. It feels like me. Like, really actually me in my body now, in my mind, in my heart, and in my spirit.
That's really great. And I know you think this already, but I just want to reiterate it. Regardless of the feedback on this album,
Yeah.
the fact that you just said this album encompasses me and who I am,
Yeah.
you just created what you needed to create, right?
Oh, yeah.
You did it. You finished. That's success to me.
Yeah, like it, as far as I'm concerned, everything that I could ever want from releasing a body of work has already happened. Like any accolades, any feedback, anything positive that happens post the release of this record is all sprinkles on top. Like it's already done what it needed to do. The creation process of it and the healing that it's given me and given my family, that's what it was for. Anything that happens professionally from it and the opportunities that it might open for me, all of that is just sugar on top. And I'm just so grateful to see what happens, and I'm open to receiving the opportunities that may come from it. But they're not things that I'm holding on to, because it's like I'm already off. Like, not that I'm not going to bask in this project, but I'm already off to the next project in my mind. Not because I can't sit still, but because I can't help but create. I want to create. It feels good to create. So I'm so excited for this project. I cannot wait for people to hear it. And I hope that people come to the party.
I'll be there. I'm definitely going to be there. And you'll be at my party too.
Yeah.
In a couple weeks after that. So that's going to be super exciting.
Yeah.
I can't wait for you to play at our wedding. It's going to be a great time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's going to be such a blast.
Yeah. It's going to be fun.
Blast.
Kahrin, I appreciate you so much. This has been an awesome conversation.
Thanks.
I'm so excited to listen back to this and get some nuggets of inspiration from you. So really so much gratitude from my side. Tell the people though where you can find your album, your stuff, all that.
Awesome. Thanks so much. It really has been a great chat, and I really appreciate you bringing me on. My socials, my Instagram is pure, PURE_Kahrin, which is KAHRIN. And my website is purekahrin.com. And as for the album release party, the tickets for that are right on my website on the Poems from Willow Creek tab. And the show will be Saturday, April 22nd at Gordon Green. Doors are at 6:30 and the show's at 7.
Perfect.
So
And
hope people are there.
I'll let the people know. Is your album releasing on the 22nd too?
The album is releasing April 19th, which is my papa's birthday.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Everything ties together.
Big birthing.
Yeah.
Big birthing. Yeah.
That's awesome. No, I love the intention you put into your work and your craft, and
thank you.
It shows. And like I said, so grateful that you could be here and share your thoughts and stuff.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening. Peace.
Everybody wanna seem like they're living out the dream. It's always about the cream, since we talked about the cream.